Hi, I'm Nick Horton, and welcome to the last panel debate here at Green Impact Week here in Copenhagen. It's been an amazing week. We've had some amazing panels, and this will be the raisin, as they say in Denmark, at the end of the sausage. For those of you that think that's a weird metaphor, I'll agree 100%, and I'll go with the good old-fashioned American, Irish pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Slightly more of an easier image, I think, for most of us to grasp. All right, so what we're looking at here is the gap between foundations and investors. There's a strong focus on global goals and impacts in entrepreneurship, but most investors focus on scale-ups and often on tech. So we're talking tech bros, white, highly educated startups, usually something in software, which isn't necessarily our bag here in the impact world, where we're looking for a little bit more of diversity and we're looking for something more than just dollars and cents. Cool. We'll kick off with an introduction. We've got a lovely panel here. Let's start off down at the end with Mikkel and go sort of in height descending order. Vasco.
Yeah. I'm Mikkel. I'm program manager in the Tuborgfondet, which is a philanthropic foundation handing out grants for 90 million kroner every year. As a program manager, I follow the projects from they enter as an idea and sometimes until they end several years later. The Tuborg Foundation has the purpose of supporting young people, always 16 to 30 years old, in realizing their dreams of a more hopeful and sustainable world, hopeful and sustainable future.
If you could, this audience understands the ecosystem, and they've seen there are an awful lot of organizations out there supporting early stage firms, accelerators, incubators. How do you fit in? What specifically does the Tuborg Foundation do? And also, may I just mention, the source of the money, for those of you that may not be clear, is from beer. It's a lovely place to start.
It all comes from beer, as we usually say.
All comes from beer, and that's a happy place. Now, what exactly do you do in your organization in this flow from when you meet a startup or an idea to it leaves?
Yeah. So we don't support the individual startup. Bad news. So you could ask, why am I on this panel? It's because we support the ecosystems of the startups. So the NGOs, the organizations that work with the startups, they are the ones we support. So always we're looking for a group, ecosystem, several startups to support in different kind of setups. So, for example, one setup is with the Fund for Entrepreneurship, where we have a big project. They choose SDG entrepreneurs from universities and other educations, and they also have a big program for female mentorships within the entrepreneurship. So this is just an example of one of the projects we're supporting.
Excellent. Anton.
Yes. First of all, I'm very, very glad to be here, and I think it's a very, very competent panel. I'm the CEO of SHEworks Ventures. What we do is that we invest in startups. We invest in all sort of growth companies in Denmark, to begin with. We have this quite unique, model where we invest together with private investors. Our own backgrounds in SHEworks Ventures is that we are entrepreneurs ourselves. And we've raised just around 2 billion Danish crowns. And from doing that, we've learned what it means taking in conventional investors. And that, of course, the conventional investors bring in a lot of money, but the competencies that they bring and the experience and the network that they bring isn't always the most suitable for the companies.
I love the smile. It comes to your face when you talk about it, because I recognize it as the smile of rueful experience.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned before that among the investors you bring in, for example, you brought together Goldman Sachs with the World Bank.
Yeah.
And they may share a taste for monk strap shoes, but they have very different philosophies.
Very, very different. And also from doing that, we've learned what it actually means to bring in different type of investors in one sport. And now what we do in SHEworks is that we're very much focused on who do we actually bring into the investments. So we, as a company, SHEworks Ventures, facilitate all the investments, but we don't ourselves go into boards.
And there's also a difference in your model to a lot of the VC models that you'll be familiar with, where instead of raising a fund from a large group of limited partners, LPs, and then investing that over a 5-year period and guaranteeing a 20% per annum return, you find an interesting company and you've got your network and you put a syndicate together to invest in that company.
Exactly.
And ticket size, the amount of money that you invest, ticket size, the amount of money that you're giving these companies is...
It ranges a lot. I think from the smallest investment that we made has been 200,000 Danish crowns. The largest we've done is around 20 million Danish crowns. So it ranges a lot. And also the stages, of course, as a consequence, are very, very different. Some are very, very early. Some are just straight out of uni. Some have been operating for 10 years.
Super.
Cool. Yeah, okay, my name is Thomas, and I'm a co-founder and CFO, co-founder and CSO of a company.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, it has been a long week. A company based in Australia and Denmark called Impactr, and we're building a new social app to make it easier for people to act on their conscious values. So we basically...
You got both sides of the planet covered. You did say Denmark and Australia.
Yeah, we are pretty also. We have some of our team members in Spain right now. So we have been fully remote for the past 18 months. My co-founder Johanna ended up in Australia due to COVID 12 months ago. But anyway, we're building the social platform. It's a video-based app. So basically, you go on Impactr to be in a community and inspire people to take impactful actions. And what we believe in is the compounding effects of people doing these small things, but doing them together and inspire each other. So we work with behavioral change, and we're trying to re-engineer some of the nasty stuff on social media right now actually to a very strong behavioral engine. And we are in beta right now. We are launching in about 6 weeks, and we are live in about 30 countries at the moment.
Cool. Business model, because one of the challenges with social media is you don't need to laugh that hard, Anton. The business model for social media has been accused. Some people say it's evil, some people say it's whatever. How are you guys making money? Or how will you make money?
Well, how will we make money? Our initial business model is actually a play on a normal, I would say, ad-based model you would see in social media. It's based on affiliate links. But what we do is a bit different because you can become a quote-unquote influencer from the second you step on the platform. You don't have to have a big following. We have flipped the creator brand marketplace on its head. So we enable or empower creators to start monetizing the content from day one. And another thing is that it might be ads, but it's all impact-based products and organizations and brands. So we are curating the space. So it's not. It's a limited number of companies we have right now, and they are all vetted.
All right, and your content creators, how do they make money? Because let's say YouTube,
it's basically in that sense you're mimicking YouTube. In that sense, you create a video. Somebody reacts on that. Say you're a kid from Nigeria, make a video about a Danish energy company. We have a referral agreement with this company. So if they convert, let's say you, to switch your energy subscription, then we'll pay the kid in Nigeria just on a revenue share.
Cool. Pretty sure I follow that. And I'm guessing that your rates, it's not a millions of click to dozens of dollars thing like it is on some of the
No, it could be because let's say some of the affiliate agreements we have right now is about for a conversion it could be as much as $50. And we will split that in at least at the 50-50 price point, maybe even higher, and with an upside to the content creators.
That may have legs. Boom. Solveig, SHEworks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I'm the CEO and founder of a circular design studio, an impact startup called SHEworks. And we create jobs for immigrant women.
So it is what it says on the tin, as we say.
Exactly. We are quite transparent, I would say. And what we do is that we source waste materials from the textile industry in Denmark, and we create lifestyle products with these women who have experience from their home country, working in factories or growing up in tailor families and so on, who, when they come to Denmark, they have a hard time they're on the outskirts in the Danish labor market. So what we do is that we train them and employ them to be a part of our community and also commercial company.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. The gap. Boom. How do we bridge it? What problems do you see? And what fixes do you think we need to bring in? So, you know, when I think of investors and I think, you know, we're talking, you know, scalable, large ambition, huge, and I'm thinking, You guys both mentioned that there was, as we were prepping for this, there was a need for maybe there was innovation in funding, in the models and the types of funding and how we look at this. Specifics. I mean, what are the challenges in funding this? Because I could imagine there's an awful lot of hands-on, it's difficult to scale.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, we don't grow like exponentially because we are in what you can call slow fashion industry, and
was there a couple of more words on the product, you know? And so I get that
I can give you an example.
People at their kitchen table with a sewing machine, and you provide them with the materials, but
what we do is, for instance, we made a collaboration with Sofa Company. We only sell B2B because our goal is to create as most jobs as possible. Okay. So, for instance, we did for Sofa Company, we recycled...
Sofa Company is what it's, but it's like one of Denmark's biggest furniture companies, but they're focused on sofas. I do, by the way, is this a theme that you work with? Sorry, joking. But anyway, Sofa Company, all right, so then you work with...
I mean, what we did for them was that we recycled the waste material from the production into a new pillow collection, which they sold on, and then it's like a zero waste collaboration.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's an example of how we recycle materials from the industry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can give you a few problems if you want.
You bring them, because exactly.
So one example is that at one point I did find that there was a new fund, and this was actually from the Velux fund, and I had a bunch of my friends sending me emails. So there's this new fund. It's made for women on the outskirts, and you should definitely apply for it. So I looked it up, and it said it was only for NGOs. But the point with our company is that we want to create real jobs to make a real impact. So I called the manager of this fund and I said, could this really be true? Is this only for NGOs? And they said, yes, unfortunately it's a new program. But I said, but really our goal is to create jobs. So I mean, there would be a sense in investing in us. But I mean, there was so because we're not an NGO, because we do have an ambition to grow and create as many jobs as possible, we can't apply.
Right, and this is, and I mean, Velux, just to, they're the rooftop window people, and they're owned by a foundation, right? The Velux, and this is like also one of the challenges I think we got here is it's like super simpatico people trying to help super simpatico people. This isn't us against the oil industry or us against big tobacco. This is good people trying to help out good people and hitting barriers. All right, so a lot of the money is going to charities, and you're a business.
Yeah, and I think it's also because it's something new, you know, people who want to create businesses and create a real impact for people who are not on the job labor market.
Gotcha. Thomas?
Well, just because of that, I've been working in this space for nearly 15 years, started out in research. I'm a second-generational impact founder. So my mom kind of did a business like you're working with immigrants and these like crafts and stuff. So when we started building Impactr, or my wanting to build Impactr, is actually me coming from this sector and working also with personal investments as a business angel. So we are building Impactr as a venture-backable company, and that's the business case. So we haven't approached any foundations because I knew there would be limitations, especially in the Danish context. We are talking with some US-based foundations because they have other products.
And how are they different? Because I mean, there is no point in reinventing the wheel. What can we copy from them?
I think there's different things in it. Like maybe you talked about it this morning, but at the venture sector is young in Denmark, right, compared to the US. Yeah. So in that sense, that's one thing, and that's also the size, right? So how many investors you got, and what are they looking for? What have they been investing in before. So there's a lot. So there's basically a lot of risk adversity in that business or in that sector. But I will also find that risk adversity really high in the philanthropic sector, and they might be really set on what they invest in. And like you said, a lot of foundations, especially in Denmark, and it might be due to tax tax structures. But they have these limitations of actually investing or giving grants to companies, and especially young companies. Actually, we had one conversation with a Danish foundation. I'm not going to mention the name because they're doing a fantastic job, but we can clearly sense that this was something they were really interested in, but they were also looking at our one runway and say, are these guys going to exist in 6 months, right?
Sure.
Because what do foundations live on? It's not a ROI on money, but it's on reputation, right? They want to go out and say, we did this to the world. So I would always say there's also super high risk adversity in that business. So I think that's kind of the gap right now, where you have these businesses that are in between. Investors actually looking at this, that this might be a business case. I would say in some instances it's also about how exponential your business model is, because there's just like this, and Anton, you can talk about this, but venture capital has these requirements in order to make sense, right?
Sure.
Yeah. You need to 10x at least for if you're a venture fund, and if you are just an angel, you might be looking for 4 or 5x, and that might be hard to get in these smaller businesses. I'm not saying that they are there, right? On the other hand, you have foundations where, and then you can talk about that, it's more like saying that have a mandate to maybe invest in specific areas, and then you might have like entrepreneurs not approaching a specific like sector or even like I would say area where you want to invest in, or who are the beneficiaries. We need to find that out. And if you're a startup and you want to be commercial, then you're probably trying to figure out your business model. And maybe your beneficiaries of your product, if it's a social impact product, might be, I don't know, young kids one day, and then actually you figure out, oh, this product is actually better for, let's say, young grown-ups, right? So you will shift around, figuring out where you get your product market fit, and I think that's hard to grasp in a foundation.
Well, let's hear what foundation man at the end has to say about this.
Well, it's important to understand that all foundations, philanthropic foundations, they have a charter, and we have by law to follow this charter. And for example, for the Tuborg Foundation, our charter is that all donation we give have to be beneficial for society in general. And it's very, very hard to document that a single company is beneficial for society. And that's why we have made the choice that we're not investing in companies. We're not giving donations to individual companies. Also because we're not interested and are not capable to own a myriad of small startups. That's not what we do. So that's why when we work with green entrepreneurship, we made this choice of supporting the ecosystems instead, because then we have a layer in between that are the ones who can identify the great startups, the great companies that have potential to grow and to make a big difference for society.
This is a great point. I'd love to dig a little bit more into the foundations thing, because we see this in corporates too, where corporates often will rather give a grant to a startup than give money, because if they have to own and the cost of managing the relationship, the ownership relationship with as soon as you started talking, you said, there's a legal requirement, and I'm like, oh yeah, Mikkel gets audited every year, and Price Waterhouse comes in and says yes or no to everything that you've done. All right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say also to coming entrepreneurs that, as you said, it's really important to try and be sharp on your impact, and then we were to measure it and put numbers to it, because even you have a very sort of like soft, human-oriented point of view. If you have to reach these funds and so on, you have to be really sharp on your numbers. And we were lucky enough to be a part of Impact startup at the Social Capital Fund, and we actually had our impact measured on a period of 10 months to 3.5 million kroners. So this is actually an amount of money that we have saved society for. So I'm just really supportive in saying that we need to be really sharp on measuring these things.
There's also a big opportunity cost. I made the mistake of joining a project once with a university that will remain unnamed, but that they had 6 million crowns that were as good as in the bank from a certain foundation. So I went into this project, and of course the money didn't show up, and that when the money didn't show up, we spent forever writing this form and using their efficient online portal to fill out unbelievable amount of detail. And we got a one-line response saying that, well, we're apologizing, we're very sorry, but the money had been allocated elsewhere. Now we're thinking, okay, 1 week of my life for one sentence response, I understood how the French peasants felt in the early 1780s, shall we say, when talking to the nobility. There is often a really big gap. How do we bridge that?
Well, in the Tuborg Foundation, when you apply for large grants, you only send in your project idea. So it's maybe 2 pages, simple questions, and a preliminary budget. That's all. Then we evaluate, is this something that are within our scope of donations? And then we ask people for a dialogue, to a meeting, talk about more about the project. Then we take it up in the team, and afterwards, if we still think this is within our scope, we invite them to write a real application.
So you step forward, and this is an interactive process.
Exactly.
I have some people that you need to talk to. All right, but at the same time, there is this gap. You know, and what other challenges are there, and also opportunities?
Well, I'd like to talk about the gap a little bit. I would say, at least at SHEworks, it's super important for us to be as commercial as possible. That's why we're also design-driven. So we're able to actually sell our products and as I said, have the numbers right. But I would say we have been fortunate enough also to win a few awards. And I just think, and as you know also, Anton, there's a demand. I know at least among some of your customers for these type of impact companies. And I think that you just, as an impact startup and as a founder and CEO, you just really have to be aware of the commercial potential that you have, because it's that's just extremely important. You have to sort of like ride that wave in a way, because this is your opportunity to get people on board. So even though it sounds horrible in someone's ears, my advice is to be as commercial as potential, but keep your mission and soul, yes, of course, at the same time.
Well, because also, I mean, there's a couple of things you're selling, and that we had some people on from Aarhus earlier on a panel where they had 2 startups in Aarhus, and we had a couple of corporates here, and one of the things we were pretty clear on was that you're not just selling a product, you're also selling a brand.
Yes.
You know, and that there is always, you know, and that you're selling cool. And the startups right now are hot. They are cool.
And you have to be really aware of that. That's just my point.
Yeah, and that you have a lot more than just the money that you're selling. There isn't anybody that drives a large BMW that lives north of Copenhagen that's called partner or VP that hasn't invested in something and would much rather tell you about their startup that they're invested in than whatever it is they do as VP, assistant VP for whatever.
Shame on you if you invest in guns or tobacco. Or
Well, I also say exactly, and right now they're not doing. It's not a lot of the return isn't good on either of those 2 things compared to a lot of other stuff. Yeah, so the cool factor. I mean, do you see that in the brand? If we're cool being another word for brand, yeah?
Yeah, because we're doing a consumer thing, right? So it's everything about brand, but we're just like a solution. I think what you're doing with Tuborgfondet and putting money behind the grants program in Fund, by de-risking like early stage for people, for the investors. I think that we should see so much more of that in Denmark. I would love to see, like, especially private capital matching like Innovationsfonden, because I really believe that Innovationsfonden is so risk adverse that they are pretty much hurting the ecosystem. Because it's they are even more risk adverse than the foundations, because it's other people's money, right? So I would see something like, I would see like all the Danish foundations coming together, taking 1% of their AUM 1 year and put it into this structure that just says impact. It doesn't have a theme. It might have some, I don't know, some clauses around how you measure. You need to measure shit. Measurement, and then start de-risking pipelines for people like Anton, and maybe even buying some of the stuff early on, right? Buying some of the effects, like you said, you can provide measurement saying that you are listing the cost of society like 3 million each each quarter, right? Yeah. And then actually that might be some foundation that actually will be willing to buy that impact, right? So I think like the result-based contracting could be something like, and then that's what I'm talking about, like financial innovation, like taking some of the silos that are right now, and I think like you're doing, I think it's exactly what you're doing with the fund entrepreneurship, like being a fund of funds, and you're putting LPs in their program, and then actually giving them leverage to find a pipeline and invest in those, because then. And it could even be a partnership with guys like Anton, right? Saying that we can actually bring in like a grant, match a grant. If you find an angel, we'll match that grant or match that investment with a grant, right? You've seen those kind of products in other countries, and I think that
other countries thing. If we could develop that one a little bit, because when you were saying you've seen things done in the States, I know you in the foundation business. I know you look beyond Denmark's borders. Most Alibaba, who you've worked with, Goldman, the World Bank, none of those are Danish brands. Yeah. There may be Danes that work there, but they're definitely foreigners. What do you see, and what are you seeing that you've got to be seeing other people doing this? I know they're doing stuff like this over in southern Sweden. They're rocking at it over in southern Sweden. What can we copy from elsewhere to get to the answer faster? There's no point in doing the homework if the person sitting next to you has done it, and we can all skip ahead. What do you see working elsewhere?
What we see in CVX now, we have a lot of companies in different countries, and I think the one thing that we are aware of for each problem that we face is that whenever we're talking about gaps or how to bridge those gaps, is always thinking about where do we actually want to be? What is actually our target, or where actually do we want to go, and why can't we be there? And I think when talking about SDG startups versus venture capital, or just in general money coming from private investors, I think it's really, really important to understand, first of all, where do people want to go? What is our goal in CVX Ventures? What is Solveig's goal in SHEworks Atelier? Is that the same goal that we're looking at? Is it the same sort of understanding that we have of the business and the journey that we're on? Because if we're not on the same journey, if we're not aligned on what our targets are and what our goals are, we can't talk about gaps, because there's a whole different gap. It's the gap about the targets. So I think what we do a lot is to really be on the same page with the companies that we work with. And we work with you, Solveig, and SHEworks for, I think, a few months now. And the first thing that we had to understand was, what exactly are we working against? Because first of all, what Solveig does is that she goes together with immigrant women. They upcycle waste material, and then they sell that to other companies so that they can distribute them to their network. And first of all, I had to understand what exactly is the three bottom lines here, because there's one, against, it's really, really impact focused against these immigrant women. It's about up-qualifying these women, and it's about giving them an education, teaching them Danish. Yeah, all that.
Taking them off the welfare rolls.
All that, giving them a job and integrating them into the Danish society, and that's one thing. But now you said that you've done you had some some analysis on what actually does this save the environment or save the society. And that's one thing that we measure. And then the second one is, okay, so now we upcycle material for other companies. Okay, how much money do we make on that? And as Solveig said, how can we commercialize that? How actually do we measure that? And then the third one is, okay, now we have some sort of subscription-based model with the companies where they buy our services. So first of all, we can sell our products, but we can also just sell the pure service as that we do for this, and then they can put our brand on their website, and they can say, oh yeah, they work together with us, and that has a huge impact on, for instance, Novo Nordisk or Gani or Frentzen or Sofa Company. So when we did that with SHEworks, I finally understood, okay, we're working against these three targets.
Wait, so you're actually invested?
We've not invested, but we've helped her with finding board members.
An advisory board.
All right,
yeah.
Super.
Yeah. So we do that next to investments, because there's a lot of companies, as I mentioned in the latter panel debate that I joined in. We look at around 80 to 100 companies per month, and that's a lot. And we invest in around 4 per month. So there are a lot of companies that we don't necessarily find attractive right now, or they don't find us attractive.
Yet,
I think
being
that's
the key
also,
word you mentioned
yeah.
earlier. Yeah. So they're not attractive yet, but you've made them an advisory board member.
Exactly. And we never say no to anyone. It's always we want to work with you. And one of the ways that we do that is that we set up advisory boards or more professional boards where we go in, we put in our partners to add value and to make the case more, what could you say, attractive for investments. Because if we were to invest in Solveig when I met her half a year ago, I think it would dilute her so much that it wouldn't make sense. I think now the business case is way stronger with SHEworks. So that's what we do. We put in the competencies to build that growth that makes it possible for us to invest in, I don't know, half a year.
So you're investing network rather than money at this point in order to hopefully be able to make more money later.
Yeah.
To be able to invest money later.
Yes.
And sorry.
Go.
Well, I would say that the first time SHEworks reached out to me, I was a little doubtful because, of course, they're on the evil side with money and so on.
He's probably got a nice watch.
Exactly. But what I soon found out is that they have an extraordinarily great network, and also because we are such a niche company, we're really also into the whole green transition in the Danish textile industry. So I thought, could he have anyone within textile? That was my sort of thoughts. And
all right, so evil banker must know evil fashion industry person. I see the network overlap, and I like the analysis.
So I was a little doubtful at first, but we have actually had a tremendous great collaboration, and we found some great advisors from the textile industry.
And what did those people bring specifically? Like, I mean,
well, first of all, they know how to build an organization.
Yeah.
My background is as a designer,
okay.
So I don't know anything about building an organization. How to perhaps I would say everything so far I've built on my intuition, and it's gone great so far. But if we want to take it a step further, we really need to know some people who know something about first the textile industry, about building organizations, and so on and so forth.
If I could just pause you a second, God, this level of insight into what you can and can't do is something. I say there's an awful lot of men that could do with a little more insight into what they're not good at. Yeah, but what I hear you saying is a little bit is what you're saying is one of the things we talk about. There's a commonly used description: hipster, hustler, hacker. That these three abilities that you need in a company. And I apologize for those that feel triggered by the word hipster, but that what we mean in this particular context is somebody that knows the problem, knows the solution, understands the problem, and then the hacker is an expert at building the problem. The hustler is the person that can get it sold, that can raise the capital. And so as a designer, you understand the problem and you understand the opportunity because you see all this cloth, you see something that can be made out of this cloth, you know the women.
We know how to see a potential.
So you've got the potential, you understand the problem. Excellent.
Yeah.
This is cool to have one of those people on stage. We've had an awful lot of the hustlers on stage.
Hustlers can be great.
They're really good at making money, and if you've got money, it's a lot more fun to run a business.
Yeah, but my point was just that we did actually find someone from the textile industry, even people who are already actually 10 years in front of us with the green transition in textiles.
Cool.
So I was really surprised. And
what did they contribute to the company?
Well, it's very new. So I have yet to see, but I have high hopes.
What are you looking for them to contribute? What gaps are you looking for them to cover for you?
Well, as I just mentioned, organization building and network, of course.
Network to who? To suppliers, to customers?
To suppliers and also to customers. Business development, how to make some great deals, all of these business things, because I'm very well aware of the things that I don't know anything about. So, and I think that can also be a strong skill, I would say. So I can do what I'm good at, and they can help me with what I could be.
I see why you're involved. I see why you're following this one.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think I really mean it. Whenever we meet a new company, we first of all, we work with the teams. It's always the founders we look at. We meet them in person. We do personality tests on them. We do all that kind of stuff. But then we always ask them, do you have a board? Do you have an advisory board? Do you have a real board? Who advise you? Because even though that it is entrepreneurs first in all that we do, as an entrepreneur, the greatest pitfall that I've seen is to be too narrow-minded and to have shadows on your eyes. And the pure fact that having an advisory board or a board just helps you broaden your perspective and broadens up your network. So I suggest that all companies build some type of board, some type of advisors who can help them bring in other networks, bring in experience, bring in, as you said, possibilities for creating deals or for creating, I don't know, new opportunities, and just so valuable to a company.
But also
Thomas,
be picky.
What's that? Be picky.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Yeah, not all help is not all advice is good advice. Who do you take advice from?
Right now, our users. We had an advisory board, and still have an advisory board, and it was really good in the first before market or product in market. But right now, it's data driven. So it's all about analyzing all the feedback and not being pinhole in what I think is a good product or should be a good product and how it should look, but actually listening to our users.
These advisors, what do you look for them? And you had a great point there where like yesterday's advisors are not necessarily the same ones for this stage. A couple of words on those people.
When we started out like 2 years ago, it was like just people. Basically, started was a lot of people from the financial industry, actually, just to access networks around investors and getting that on, but also like people we had like this, our product started being really science heavy, right? Both of my co-founders have like big background in this impact space, so we're just like, I work with measurement of measuring companies and such. So we had this idea of building this expert community of sustainability experts to help build our algorithm. So we had Catherine Richardson, one of the most renowned sustainability.
She's on the radio.
Yeah,
all
but
the
also,
time
because we said we had this quote unquote crazy idea of working with a social network as a platform for creating this. Instead of my co-founder, she's an ex-vice president of Vestas, right? She worked with she's an aerospace engineer. So she worked with deep tech. And now she's throwing all she got at social media. It doesn't make sense, and a lot of people looked at us. What are you doing, right? But it was just like we need.
Well, okay, so and why does it make sense?
Because I think cultural shifts is as important as technological shifts, right? New behavior, new markets, and that's why we are throwing our all in this, is making it possible to curate and to stimulate these cultural shifts. Because that's what I've been working on for the past 15 years. I've seen a lot of amazing solutions, but they're not getting fast enough to market, or people are not finding them. So this is our play of getting to that. But what I'm saying is that we needed that credibility coming out, saying we wanted to build a social media, and people are like, "What are you doing? Why don't you go into deep tech?" And Catherine said to us, "You're totally right. It's not what people know; it's what they do. And first you do something, and then you learn." So it's all about being behavior, like what we do and how we transition our society is what we do, is not what we think, because all the knowledge is out there. We all know what to do, but we are not doing it. That's basically the problem.
How are you reading the data, and what is the data telling you at the moment?
I mean, it depends. Right now, we're really focused on people loving the product, right? Because and making it make sense for our time.
Like, how do you measure love?
Right now, it's about retention. Do they come back to the app? How do they use the platform? Do they share it with their friends? How do they use it? Who uses it? What are the backgrounds? What we found out is really interesting. Like, what we define as we have this concept of core active users, which is people that are actually using our product, not just scrolling, but actually adding to the feed as a video feed. And what we found out is actually 40% of those most active on our platform didn't post any content on other platforms before. They are on social media, right? But they're scrolling. And what we did is actually, maybe it's because we lowered the barrier for participating or creating videos by this concept we made, but it's also because they really give a damn about what this concept is. Right.
So you're converting passive social media users to active social media users through. And then you're trying to measure exactly why.
Being in a vertical, and that's what was based really on some of the advices we had really early on saying what's happening right now in the social media landscape. Everybody is actually going to these vertical communities. If you see where all the traffic is on Facebook, it's actually in groups. It's not on the feed. People just go on the feed to get to the groups, right? So that was kind of the trigger point, and we went for that, and it's okay, there might be something, and then we started just exploring it, right? But yeah, advices are and we're just like, oh, we need to get a new advisory board because we haven't been looking at it. But we're so much right now. We're so focused on actually getting feedback from users and implementing and iterating product around what they believe and what they think is this has to be, right?
And I think actually that's a very, very good point, because I've seen so many companies set together advisory boards when they start, and then they never change the advisory board. And that's just, it's like, of course people change, of course companies change, and companies need new advice as they grow. Now you said that you started your advisory board, how long time did it go?
No, I think one of the first things we did when we started the company was get an advisory board. Right?
Exactly.
That's because we needed some context, and especially like validation. And it's not like you're out of the advisory board. Some of them might come back again. I think we would love something like Catherine to come back at some point, but right now she doesn't really can't contribute that much, right? But so it's not an open door policy, but it's really about like getting people in and out the door that really can support your business in where you are right now, and also contrast you, right, and push you because my God, you get narrow-minded, right?
Hello, the rabbit hole is easy to fall down, and it's super easy to drink your own Kool-Aid. We've only got a couple of minutes here before we wrap up, and we are keen on empowering the audience with solutions. Now, this advisory board one has been one that I did not expect to pop up. I loved seeing the way of bridging the investor startup gap by plugging in an advisor that both sides can listen to, and then you get one of the things I've always loved is getting somebody else to do your work.
I just want to add one thing. We had to talk about diversity before, right? And one of the things I've seen in this space around investors is like there's not a lot of people like Anton has actually take the time to look at a business like that. So what I've seen is a lot of it, from my perspective, I even tried to make a business around it 2 years ago, way too early, right? But anyways, a lot of investors can't really see these opportunities in this space because they don't know anything about it. They might have a background in, I don't know, SaaS, right, and looking at that business and don't know anything.
Service.
Yeah. So I think that and that like what happens with this diversity is like Anton took the time to actually look at this business and actually see, oh, this is actually potential, or this has potential, or even how you will approach the next business cases coming with that kind of triple bottom line will inform your path forward, right? So anyways, there was just like a loop to the discussion about diversity, right?
Some final guldkorn. I mean, one of the things I'll say about somebody like Mikkel over at Tuborg is, I've had these ecosystem jobs. You see a lot of startups, and you see a lot of ways of doing stuff, and you see a lot of things that are smart and stuff that ain't necessarily so smart. Something smart that we can copy, that we should scale. Love the advisory board example. We've given the advisory board a lot of love. Final parting comments, something that we need to see more of.
I think to disagree with the last panel where you said change always starts with the individual. We work in the exact opposite way. We say the change always starts with the community and a group of people, and that's what we always look at when we get the pitches for projects. So change starts in communities.
I think actually that's a good point, and I think my final guldkorn would be to
guldkorn is golden nugget.
Yeah.
Yes.
My final.
It's also a very popular cereal that I adored as a child.
Yeah, it is. But I think my final piece of advice would be for all companies that we work with to know who are we actually competing against, because it's one of the mere facts that we look at the most is, especially within the SDG or the sustainability agenda, there aren't that many competitors to other companies. But I think it's always important to know who exactly are we competing against. If Google said, oh yeah, we're the best now, we don't have to compete against Yahoo. Of course not, nobody uses Yahoo. But of course they have to compete against themselves. And I think that's a very, very crucial point here, is that you always have to compete against someone, whether that is yourself.
And let me give you this is a great point, and this one I've heard brought up elsewhere was, for example, running shoes. I run in Hoka's, or I run in New Balance, because Nike and Adidas don't make a shoe for me. So Hoka is not competing, and actually, like, New Balance, they're not competing against, my running shoe maker is not competing against Adidas. They're competing against the snooze button, right? Or they're competing against the couch, me not getting off my ass and going running. Because if I don't run, I don't wear out the shoes, I don't buy new ones. And so oftentimes, we think that our competitor is somebody who does something similar to us when it can be somebody completely different.
Yeah.
You got an example of that?
I think the best example is actually that Jørgen V. Knudstrup, who was the former CEO of Lego, they did.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, I've heard of them as well. They made a product where they made a final piece of product. So I think it was like I think it was a vehicle, some type of stuff. They produced 30,000 of these products. When they put them in stores, they found out that one crucial piece was missing in all of these 30,000 boxes.
We've all been there.
They couldn't afford, in terms of brand, to be able to actually recognize the fact and go out and say to everyone who bought the boxes, hey, there's a final piece missing. They sold all of these 30,000 boxes. They heard from less than 2% of the customers. So Jørgen V. Knudstrup took from that they have to be, there's 2 points here, because first of all is that you don't hear from all customers who get a bad service. And I think that there's some reasons behind that psychologically, because if I couldn't figure out how to build Lego, I would look to myself and say, well, I'm the idiot.
We've also got a lot of it over in the corner in the other boxes.
Yeah, exactly. That's one point that he made, is that be aware that when customers complain, you don't hear from all of them. That's the first thing that he said. The second is that now they sold these boxes, and what they drew from the fact that the customers didn't complain was they did a huge competitor analysis, because they were actually so impressed that people didn't complain about the boxes that they thought they would. So that also made them look into who actually are we competing against, if our customers are not really going into if they can actually build the vehicle or not. So they started up doing this huge competitor analysis of all other toy maker. And if you go into a toy shop, what would I buy? Would I buy Lego, or would I buy something other toy? Would I buy a doll, or what would I buy? And what they found is that in their target audience, if you look at a 12-year-old boy, if he goes into a shop, if he doesn't buy Lego, what does he buy? Does he buy an iPhone? Because then it's a whole different game. That's not the toy industry anymore. So I think to boil it down, really open up your perspective of who do you actually compete against.
Absolutely. At my house, Lego competes with Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool, Thomas. Final thoughts. Solveig, I know you got something brewing in there that's good. Short, concise, and if you don't, you can just hop over. We can go straight to the beer portion of this event.
Okay, I don't know if final thoughts on the whole discussion. I think going back to the community thing, I think it's like we're talking about a new type of. I think we're talking about a new type of entrepreneurship with 3 bottom lines, and it's like it doesn't make sense to put gasoline in an EV, right? So I think we need a new concept of what finance is. Of course, we have these 2 silos of like philanthropic grants, and then you have venture capital. And I think there's possibilities to figure out new ways of doing this. And it can start out with these collaborations, right? The communities, like you're doing with the Fund for Entrepreneurship, or you're partnering up. Like I think you've seen it in the Medco, like in the Medco sector, right? Yeah. There's a lot of grant underwriting. R&D, right? And also grants going. So I think there's new ways of making new forms of capital, I think, is needed. And it can start out with something as simple as a partnership between a quote-unquote VC investor and more like a foundation, right? And just creating that pipeline. I think and it doesn't have to be super complex. It can also just be what we have right now and make that work. But cool. We just need more of it, and more people that are daring to actually take that conversation, actually look at something that, well, it doesn't make sense for my investors right now, but it might be, and I'm super interested. And I think curiosity is the most important thing.
Solveig.
Well, a final thought would be, I think that for entrepreneurs, you shouldn't, also back to the community thing, I think you shouldn't underestimate the smaller community. For instance, we were built in the southern of Denmark. Yeah, and I like my
really big companies that have come out of this. So you guys are good at pumps.
I mean, all of
Jutland.
Jutland, you can see that.
All of Jutland.
Lots of great companies. But my point is just that I think maybe a lot of entrepreneurs, they go to the bigger cities for opportunities, but there's actually a lot of will, and there's also capital. I mean, we have worked with the municipality to get started. And
where are you based out of?
In Kolding.
Kolding, yeah.
Kolding.
There's a design school in Kolding. There's a castle in Kolding. But okay,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
a small town in Jutland.
It's a small town in Jutland, but my point is just that I think there's a lot of will to actually support these type of initiatives, especially regarding social economy and sustainable change and so on. So, I mean, in these digital times, it's easy to go to Copenhagen and we also were a part of the social, the Impactr startup in the Social Capital Fund. Great program. Cool. So those were the two.
Excellent. Get out of the campus. You've had some dynamite ones. Nice. Cool. Thank you, Solveig. Listen, thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for a great panel. Thanks for a great way to close out the conference. We just got a short talk up here with the two main organizers to close it out. You guys were awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.